They weren't thinking, they were in the prime of their youth like many of us are now. And they weren't thinking, when I have kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, what's going to happen? Many of them might even have come here thinking, I'm only coming to do my master's, PhD, bachelor's, and then go back to my land. Yeah, right, here we are now, second generation. They never went back. It was a dream. Many of them probably had it, but then you know the life of America, how it is. It's just, it catches you up, and you one thing leads to another, and next thing you know, you get married, you have kids, and you're already a grandfather. This is the way, that's the way life is. It just moves fast along. Point being, this first generation of immigrants, they didn't realize, for the most part, the ramifications of leaving an Islamic land to non-Muslim land. They didn't realize it. And many of them, again, let's be honest here, were not even that practicing. They weren't that religious. They rediscovered Islam when they came here, when they realized they have to be Muslims to pass it down. Let's be honest again. Many of them were not even praying regularly. They took Islam for granted. When they came here, they had to make a conscious effort. Hold on a second, I need to be religious or else, there's nothing left of me. My identity would be gone. And so, back in the 70s, especially in the 70s, early 80s, the issue came to build masajids. And that's what they did, and we're still doing for the most part. But for the most part, we move beyond that now. They built these masajids all over America. They hired their imams from abroad, they brought them here. But once again, what was lacking was a vision. What exactly am I going to do with my kids and grandkids? What are they going to do for Islam? What problems will they have as they grow up and become a larger and larger community, and they don't have a back home anymore? This is their home. Realize our parents still have a back home. They still make phone calls wherever they came from. They still have regular contacts. For us second generationers, we're going to have much fewer contacts with the back home. And for our children, the reality is they will have no contact at all. They will know ethnically my grandfather was from Egypt, my great-grandfather was from Pakistan, but that's about it. They're going to lose their language. As it is, who amongst us speaks مصرية عامية كده ولا they speak fluent Urdu बात करते बिल्कुल ठीक ठाक से? There's a problem here. We don't really speak the language of our forefathers. It's already lost in the second generation. Even though we understand it, we're not going to teach our kids this language. Let's be honest here. Okay? I speak fluent Urdu. I thought I would teach my kids Urdu. I can't. It's just not possible because of the environment we're living in. Their Urdu is going to be hardly anything, and then their kids after them, the language is gone. The other aspects of culture will also be watered down. Already the food is less spicy, huh? The second generation, we're noticing it. The biryani is not like the Hyderabadi one. It's already been watered down. Okay, where are the Hyderabadis here? Come on. I just praised your Okay, so it's already being watered down. But all of us realize the main thing we need to preserve is not our language, it's not our cuisine, it's not even our dress, it's our religion. We need to preserve our religion and pass that down. We're not too worried about the rest of the stuff. But here now, again, as I said, comes the crisis. The second generation, which is us, we have a lot more questions than our fathers and mothers did. We're thinking of the world in a very different way. We are a new generation with a new vision and new ideas and new problems. We also have more religious knowledge than many of our mothers and fathers did because we rediscovered Islam. Our mothers and fathers took Islam for granted. They didn't have to rediscover it. They were in a Muslim society, they came here. For us, we need to make a conscious choice. Every one of us sitting here, we need to make a conscious choice. I want to be a Muslim. I want to act like a Muslim, talk like a Muslim, walk like a Muslim, dress like a Muslim. We have to make a conscious decision to go against what is easier for us to do in our culture. It is much easier for us to be in with the crowd than it is to be as we are right now. It's much easier. We have to make that decision. And along the way, we're rediscovering a lot of things about our religion, which for the most part, our parents didn't really think about. And that goes back to many other factors which I don't have time to get into. But one of the things we're thinking about, what exactly are we going to do here in the long run? What is our goal? Our parents imported movements from the Middle East, Islamic movements. They imported ideologies. And I don't want to mention names because people get very, flustered when names are mentioned. But that's the reality. Every movement that we have, every harakat that we have was imported from Egypt, from India, from Pakistan, from all of these countries. The leaders of these harakat and movements are all back there. And they formed their vision back there as well. And most of these visions were formed in the 40s and the 30s and the 50s and 60s, very different time and place. In the 70s and 80s, when the Muslims came here, they rediscovered these movements and they brought them, hook, line and sinker, with the methodology, with the books, with the whole agenda. They brought them into America as well. So we have people giving da'wah dressed like Indians, walking the streets, they want to give tabligh. And we have people clamoring for an Islamic Khilafah based upon the ideas of an Egyptian, alim 7 years ago. We have people saying that Iqamat al-Deen is the greatest obligation based upon the ideas of an Indian Pakistani scholar 70 years ago as well. All of these people taking their visions and their roles from foreign people for us, in a different land for us, in a different time and place for us. And none of them is realistic. None of them is practical. And that's why none of them really caught fire. In the sense, caught fire in the politically correct sense, not in the, don't read into my literal words. Caught fire meaning, these days you have to be really careful what you say, okay? None of them became acceptable among second generation. None of them formed movements. Why? Because the average American child, Muslim child, realized this is not who I'm going to be. I'm not going to dress with a turban wearer and knocking doors and telling people to come to the masjid. I'm not going to talk about Iqamat al-Deen when I don't even know. What are you talking about Iqamat al-Deen? How can I do Iqamat al-Deen in this country? It's going to get me into jail these days to talk about Iqamat al-Deen, to establish Islamic Khilafah. So that type of thinking did not spread amongst the second generation, and neither should it, in all honesty. It's not the reality of the world we live in. What does that mean for us? For us it means we need to form a vision and a movement that is local to us. That is taking into account our situation, our understanding, our context, our problems, taking into account the Constitution. There are some amongst us, that are very conservative, call them extreme, whatever. I don't like using the word extreme, but they say all of this is kufr. Constitution is kufr. We cannot study law, we cannot do this and that. I don't want to say whether they're right or wrong, that's a separate talk. What I do want to say is, regardless of what you think of the Constitution and the legislation other than Allah, you are living in that midst. And for you to put your head in the sand and deny it is not going to get you anywhere. You're going to have to come to terms with it, that this is a problem, that when I grow up, and for our children, when they grow up, and they now want to practice Islam at a community level, their marriage and divorce laws will be different than the laws of the state. Inheritance laws will be different than that of the state. To what level can we take our Sharia? There are cases going on, by the way, that show you some of these things, tidbits here and there. The group of taxi cab drivers in, which city was it? Indianapolis? Minneapolis, where they refused to take alcohol. Okay? Any passenger that clearly has alcohol with them, they say, we're not going to take this. Now, this is a clash. The law says when the customer comes to you, you cannot discriminate based upon what he's carrying, as long as it's not harmful to you, what he's dressed like, what not. The law says that. These practicing Muslims says, my law, which is better than your law, says I cannot transport alcohol. There's a clash going on here. Many countries in Europe, there's a clash, a legal clash going on with the hijab and niqab. Major. This case of the sister in England, taken to court all the way up to the Prime Minister has to comment on the niqab issue, that she's wearing a niqab. And, again, the books don't quite say you cannot wear a niqab, but what is legality, what is our sharia? These are just small things. It's going to get bigger and bigger. Larger and larger issues will be raised as things go on. It's the basic premise, as I said, of contradiction, if we like, between the secular and the sacred. We have a system which is completely separate from the system of the land we're living in. And how are we going to reconcile the two? Can we reconcile the two? To what level do we water down our religion or water down Americanness or Constitution? These are all questions we have to challenge and take head on. I just want to give some general points in my humble opinion, and again, in the Q&A we can talk more about this.